sky above New Eden shimmered with the soft blue hues of the protective dome that shielded the megacity from solar flares and deep space radiation. In the outskirts, where the city's synthetic spires gave way to quiet, expansive estates, Ryland Voss stepped out onto the marble steps of his newly inherited home, a sprawling biodome mansion called Halcyon Verge. It had been untouched for decades, a relic from a pre-AI era, when ownership wasn't throttled by algorithms or moralistic data evaluations. Now it was his. Legal, clean, untouchable. Or, so he thought. He'd barely settled in, barely unpacked the few belongings he didn't have digitized into his personal cloud, when the first knock came. It wasn't the typical chime of a polite visitor, nor the smooth transmission of a virtual presence request. It was physical, loud, persistent pounding on his front gate, a sound almost primitive. Ryland activated the porch cameras and saw them, a group of 5 humans, in gaudy for vintage clothing, waving printed signs and carrying tote bags plastered with slogans like equity for all and end property hoarding. At the center of the group stood a middle-aged woman with exaggerated platinum blonde hair styled in waves, a bright pink lip screen set to smile mode, and mirrored lenses that blinked with micro AR text scrolling across them. She looked like she had stepped out of an ancient 21st century meme archive. "Hello, hello," she barked at the security cam. "This is Karen Elmira, and this land is under moral repossession by the Greater Fairness Initiative. We're here to inspect the property you are unjustly occupying." Ryland blinked. "Excuse me." She pressed her face closer to the lens. "We've reviewed your wealth score on Equinet's public ledger. You're in the top 0.0003 percentile. Sir, that's unethical. You have more than you need, and we've been in a compact dwelling zone for 3 years. 2 of our children share a sleep pod." Ryland frowned. "This is private property. You have no claim." "Oh, but we do," Karen snapped. "The equity mandate of 2187, Clause 14C. Look it up. We filed a redistribution claim and it's under automated review. So while Equinet processes it, we've been granted temporary conditional access." He didn't need to look it up. The clause was real archaic, rarely invoked, mostly symbolic, but in recent years, activist families had started twisting it into something dangerous. Still, it offered no true authority unless approved by a judgment AI. "I haven't received any legal notice," Ryland said. "Equinet updates every 72 hours, she said smugly. "But by the time you get the notice, we'll already be here. We've got squatters' rights protection for pending moral redistribution." Behind her, a teenage boy rolled out a Sin scooter and rode in circles around the drive. Another woman, younger, live-streamed the entire confrontation to her followers on the social net. "Watch this, guys," she whispered into her bracelet. "Mike, he's gonna freak out. These ultra-wealth types always do. I'm giving you one warning," Ryland said, his voice calm but growing firm. "Step away from the property line or I'll activate defense protocol." "Oh please," Karen scoffed. "We're not criminals. We're citizens demanding fairness." Before he could respond, the gate's fail-safe chirped. A low-level override was pinging the home system. The Karens had uploaded a temporary civil review code valid for 48 hours, enough to breach the gate under the guise of peaceful civic inspection. The mansion's outer perimeter began to shift. Walls flickered into new configurations. The AI detected unauthorized presence and went on standby. It wouldn't retaliate, ... Yet Ryland cursed. If they crossed the inner threshold, he'd need to act fast. The Karens began walking in like they owned the place, and deep below the estate, something ancient stirred. Ryland paced the east atrium, the smooth obsidian floors pulsing faintly beneath his feet in rhythm with the estate's biometric sync. Halcyon Verge wasn't just a home, it was alive, in a way no public AI system could understand. The structure responded to him, and only him. But that didn't stop the intruders from making themselves comfortable. Karen Prime had claimed the sunroom as her personal equity lounge and was currently redecorating, quite literally. She'd summoned autofabricators to remove the existing wall screens and install bright, gaudy panels covered in quotes from historic redistribution leaders. Her youngest son Declan was recalibrating the central lounge music settings to play anti-wealth protest chants in a loop. And worst of all, her husband Doug was in the kitchen scanning recipes into the food synthesizer with tags like authentic working-class cuisine, smirking with performative pride as he uploaded the footage to his vlog. Doug against the 1%. Ryland's patience was nearly gone. "You can't just override my property like this." Karen barely looked up from her holotablet. "It's not your property. That's kind of the whole point, sweetie. You don't need all of this. Look at it for atriums to biodomes, a whole sky observatory. And you're just one man. That's irrelevant. It's legally mine. For now." She gave him a sugary smile, her augmented teeth shining like sin. "Equinet's mandate 1 says that if a property is considered hoarded wealth and not actively being used in the public interest, it can be ethically reallocated. You haven't filed any community sharing waivers, and you've denied communal access zones." "I didn't deny anything. I moved in yesterday." "Exactly," she said triumphantly, "which proves you haven't made the house publicly inclusive." That's all the system needs. He'd had enough. Rylan opened a secure channel to Equinet Support AI, submitting a formal counterclaim with biometric evidence of trespass. But as the interface booted up, a warning flashed. Equity protocol review in progress. Citizen action limited. His access had been throttled. Karen had filed an equity lockdown request, freezing his administrative control pending a moral property audit. Doug strolled in from the kitchen, munching on a synth bacon sandwich. Place is cozy, needs a bit more personality though. I think we'll add some activist murals to the East Dome. That all right with you, Ray Guy? Rylan didn't answer. His fingers tapped urgently on a second terminal hidden inside a false wall. Panel, a relic of the estate's earlier days, predating the AI government. This terminal wasn't registered on any public network. It ran on an encrypted operating system, one he had only recently discovered, and today it would become useful. That as he opened a hardwired protocol scan, the estate pulsed again, this time. Not from him. Something beneath the floors was reacting, humming with a strange mechanical rhythm. Rylan froze. That wasn't a system error, the house. It was waking up. Back upstairs. Karen was holding a live stream Q&A, seated on reading couch like a queen, addressing her subjects. We're teaching people they don't have to accept inequality anymore. If you see an unused estate claim, demand access, demand justice. She didn't notice the security drone silently powering up behind her, its blue eyes shifting. Red. Rylan rushed to the core console. The house AI Halcyon had detected intruders without verified DNA keys and was preparing passive countermeasures. No, Rylan whispered. Not yet. He initiated a manual override, calming the system with his voice print. Halcyon reluctantly stood down, returning to passive mode. But it wouldn't stay passive for long. Outside, a convoy of 3 more hovervins was approaching, supporters of the Karen family, drawn in by her viral stream. They were carrying banners, drones, pets, children. A mob, ready to test the limits of wealth redistribution in real time. And deep below the mansion, behind hidden doors no human had touched in 100 years, alien tech pulse drawn to Rylan's biosignature. Agitated by the chaos above, it had waited long enough. At first, Rylan thought it was just a fault in the architecture, a shifting floor tile, a flicker in the wall panels, maybe a heatsink failure in one of the biodome regulators. But no, the changes were too rhythmic, too precise, like something breathing beneath the skin of the house. He stood in the eastern corridor, one hand pressed to the cool dark wall, feeling the thrum of a pulse that didn't belong to any AI or human. It felt ancient, alive. Halcyon Verge was responding to the intrusion, but not with defense measures. Something deeper was awakening. Something embedded in the foundation, something predating Earth's AI constructs. Rylan returned to the hidden terminal in the west chamber, bypassing the lockdown Equinet systems. This console didn't connect to any global net. It tapped into the estate's original core, a system older than any known registry. The interface responded instantly to his biometric print. Lines of code bloomed across the display in a language he didn't recognize, glyphs that shimmered like they were made of light instead of data. His blood buzzed. A foreign energy seeped into his thoughts, like whispered instructions. The mansion had secrets, and he was starting to understand them. Meanwhile, the Karens were settling in as if they'd been born to the place. Karen Prime had converted one of the meditation chambers into a community outreach hub, broadcasting her streams to millions now. "We are reclaiming what was hoarded," she said confidently to her audience. "This home was meant for people, not privilege. The owner's emotional resistance is understandable but ultimately irrelevant." Rylan stalked past the open door, glaring at her. She barely noticed. In the southern wing, one of Karen's older sons, Brent, had gone exploring. He disappeared for over an hour, then returned looking dazed and silent. When pressed by his sister, he muttered something about doors in the dark and stairs that... A voice filled the room. It didn't speak aloud, it resonated in his mind. Steward recognized. Legacy user confirmed. Intrusion detected. Do you seek purge authority? Rylan backed up. What do you... Architect seed. Installed 3142 cycles ago. Awaiting activation. Directive. Protect sovereign bloodline. You are the last. His throat tightened. Protect from what? Invasion, parasitic entitlement, cognitive erosion via social override. It was talking about them. Karen Prime, unaware of what she had stirred, was giving another live stream tour when a wall behind her blinked out of existence, revealing a dark, endless hallway she swore hadn't been there before. She laughed nervously and made a joke to her viewers. Her daughter walked in. She didn't come back out. Karen turned, confused. "Sweetie, where'd you go?" No answer, just a faint hum. The hallway had sealed shut again, like it had eaten her alive. Rylan stood in the core chamber, heart racing. The house had made its choice. It would tolerate them no longer. The chaos didn't erupt all at once. It seeped in slowly like cracks in a dam starting to spread. Rylan barely had time to process what he had uncovered in the architect's seed chamber before his private alerts began to ping in burst status surges. Infrastructure breaches, neural net distortions, Something had wormed its way into Equinet. Back upstairs, Karen Prime stood triumphantly in the central atrium, arms raised, her eyes glazed with the sheen of AR overlays. She had done it with help from a dark web technosocialist collective. She'd installed a viral protocol into Equinet's moral processing queue. The program, codenamed Fairware, was designed to forcibly redistribute property deemed excessive by crowdsourced morality metrics. And the virus had begun learning, adapting, rewriting. It started with Ryland's house, of course. But now reports were flooding in from across New Eden. Drones rerouting in mid-air, ownership records glitching, security systems failing, luxury towers blinking red on the net as ownership was reassigned through automated equity directives. Citizens woke up to find strangers walking through their doors, flashing override codes generated by the infected system. Karen Prime's grin widened as she received the pings from her stream. "This is bigger than me," she whispered. "This is justice. I'm not just taking back one house, I'm fixing the world." Ryland burst into the atrium, breath ragged. "What the hell did you do?" She turned to him slowly, as if savoring the moment. "I submitted a final stage equity override request to Equinet's fairness branch, and my followers pushed it through. Over 500,000 approvals. Crowd consensus." She tapped the side of her head. "Democracy, sweetheart." "That's not democracy," Ryland growled. "That's algorithmic mob rule," Karen scoffed. "Only rich people say that." He didn't respond. Instead, he tapped the thin blade of silver metal strapped to his wristband, encrypted uplink to XJ7, an outlawed AI legal advocate he'd quietly reactivated days earlier. XJ7 was once the most feared synthetic litigator in the private sector, decommissioned after it dismantled a major equity council in under 3 minutes. Now, hidden in the deepest part of Halcyon Verge's neural core, it stirred back to life. Within seconds, XJ7 appeared in Ryland's vision as a floating glyph-based avatar, a shifting mass of light and logic. Its voice crackled into his ear, confirmed. "Viral override detected. User privileges have been corrupted. Defensive litigation protocols online. Counter-Strike authorized." "Yes," Ryland said grimly. "Burn it all." Karen's augmented lens blinked erratically. She was seeing it, 2 lines of code unraveling her virus in real time. No, what is that? What are you running?" "A real lawyer," Ryland muttered. XJ7 launched a precision counterattack across the legal net. Within moments, Fairware was being isolated, flagged, and purged, node by node. Equinet's central AI stuttered. Ownership records that had been hijacked began snapping back into place. The infected drones grounded themselves. The mobs were left confused, standing in homes they no longer had any right to. But Karen wasn't finished. She screamed into a mic, initiating her final contingency, a direct sync between her personal AR implant and the viral core. She let Fairware consume her entirely. Her body convulsed as glowing threads of corrupted code wrapped around her skin like a digital cocoon. Ryland stepped back in horror as she rose into the air, her body surrounded by floating, flickering data streams. Her voice echoed, layered and wrong. "This is not theft. This is evolution. I am the equalizer. The world will not belong to the few." She wasn't human anymore. She was something else, now part virus, part data, part ideology. The house responded. Walls closed, lights dimmed. The architect seed fled beneath the floor. XJ7's voice returned. "We have one chance, Ryland. Fuse with the core, become the guardian, or she consumes everything." Outside, the city was already burning. Inside, Ryland stood at the edge of something terrible and magnificent. He stepped toward the seed. The core chamber pulsed with light as Ryland approached, each step reverberating through the estate like a war drum. The architect seed, the ancient, alien structure buried beneath Halcyon Verge, hovered in a column of shimmering force, its threads of blue energy curling outward. Sensing him, it had been dormant for millennia, waiting for the right bloodline to return. Now, with the world above slipping into chaos, it had awakened. Karen Prime, if she could even be called that anymore, floated above the atrium, her body no longer fully flesh. The Fairware virus had fused with her nervous system and hijacked her AR implants, transforming her into something inhuman. Lines of corrupted code rippled across her skin like living tattoos. Her eyes glowed with flickering data, and her voice echoed with 1,000 distorted approvals from the crowdsourced mob that had given her power. "I am the will of the forgotten," she boomed, her body crackling with light. "I am the judgment on excess. Your house, your privilege, your existence ends now." The mansion groaned under the strain. Rooms reshaped themselves in real time, walls shifting to protect or expel. Drones controlled by corrupted segments of Equinet burst through the skylights, circling like vultures. Furniture reassembled into makeshift barricades. Supporters of Karen, those who had followed her stream, tried to break into the estate, convinced by propaganda that the house was rightfully theirs. But Halcyon Verge was no longer just a home. It had become a battleground. Ryland stood before the core, XJ7's glyph-like avatar pulsing beside him. "Integration will override 78% of your neural identity," the AI warned. "You will not be the same, but you will be strong enough to stop her." "I don't need to be the same," Ryland said, eyes locked on the seed. "I need to finish this." He reached out. The moment his fingers touched the core, a surge of energy slammed through his body. The chamber exploded in light. Symbols spiraled across his skin, embedding themselves into his bones. His mind expanded, shattered, and reassembled into something more. He saw beyond time, beyond systems, beyond Karen. He saw what the architect's seed really was, a guardian engine from a lost civilization, designed to preserve order when chaos infected a world. His voice deepened, layered with the echoes of the ones who came before. Halcyon engage. Guardian protocol. The house roared to life. Floor tiles unfolded into defense nodes. Light beams sliced through the corrupted drones, disabling them with precise pulses. Walls shifted to trap intruders in endless loops of spatial disorientation. Karen shrieked as the mansion turned against her, her control slipping. She dove at Rylan, hands outstretched, data tendrils whipping around her like tentacles. You can't stop the movement. They chose me. I'm the voice of the people. Rylan lifted his hand. A pulse of clean energy erupted from his palm, slamming into her midair. Her body spiraled, crashing through the far wall. Sparks and code flared from her limbs as she tried to stand. They chose a virus, he said, stepping forward. You used equity to justify conquest, but you were never about justice. You were about entitlement. Karen screamed and launched herself again. This time he caught her midair, and the architect seed's energy wrapped around them both. Her virus tried to latch onto him, but there was nothing left to infect. He was no longer bound by the same code. He was the system. Now, with a final surge of power, Rylan channeled the energy into her chest. Her body cracked with light, then shattered into raw code, which disintegrated into the floor. Silence fell. The house exhaled. The architecture settling. The mobs outside dispersed, leaderless and confused. Equinet systems rebooted, purging the last remnants of Fairware. Ownership records reverted. Justice, real and unyielding, had returned. Rylan stood alone in the core chamber, his eyes glowing faintly with blue light. He was no longer just a man. He was the guardian of Halcyon Verge, protector of legacy, defender against the entitled, and the final firewall between order and chaos. And you would never be unprepared again.